to the book written by Antonio Pigafeta about a Portuguese explorer named Fernão de Magalhães, or known as Ferdinand Magellan, who led the first expedition to circumnavigate the globe in the early 16th centuries. While his voyage ultimately aimed from the Spice Island, present-day Indonesia, his arrival in the Philippines marked a significant turning point, initiating a complex interaction between the indigenous people and the European powers. After a long and difficult journey across the Pacific Ocean, Magellan and his crew finally saw land on March 16, 1521. They first landed on the island they called Samar. The people of Samar came to see the large and familiar fleet of ships. But they were welcoming. They bought food and water in their small boats with a special size that helps them float better. Both the Samar people and Magellan's crew were careful. Magellan and his crew then sailed to another island called Humonhon Island on March 17, 1521. They held a special religious ceremony on the beach. This was the very first time this type of ceremony had ever taken place in the islands. This act clearly showed Magellan's crew's intention to share their beliefs with the people of the islands. The ships then sailed to a much larger island called Cebu Island. They arrived on March 31, 1521. Cebu Island was different from the other islands they had been to. It had many more people and appeared to be better organized. A powerful leader named Raja Humabon ruled over Cebu Island. Raja and his people had their own unique costumes, laws, and traditions.
Raja Humabon saw the arrival of fleet of ships where he saw they had strong weapons and new things. So, he decided it would be good to be friends with them because he thought this friendship would help him. On April 14th, Raja Humabon and many of his people agreed to become Christian. They were baptized, which is a special ceremony in Christian religion. It seems like a big change in their beliefs, but it was also a way to show that they would follow the rules of Spaniard. It was a way of showing they agreed to be friends and allies. They did this to make the sailors happy and to get their help. But even though Raja Humabon became friends with Magellan, not everyone agreed. There was still trouble. Another leader, Lapu-Lapu, who lived on the nearby island of Mactan. Lapu-Lapu did not want to be friends with the sailors. He refused to follow the rules. Raja Humabon asked Magellan for help to make Lapu-Lapu obey. This request for help led to a big fight, a battle that would have a terrible consequences.
A very big fight happened of the day of April 26 and 27. This fight, called the Battle of Mactan, changed everything. The battle was on the island of Mactan. Magellan and his men went to fight against Lapu-Lapu and his people. Lapu-Lapu was a strong leader who didn't want the sailors to control his land. Magellan braved and fought very hard to protect their home. They knew their land and how to use it to their advantage. The battle showed that it wasn't easy for the sailors to take control of the island. Lapu-Lapu and his people showed that they would fight to keep their land. Their bravery and strength surprised the sailors that sailors had better weapons. But the people of Mactan had something the sailors didn't. They were fighting to protect their homes. They knew the land. They were determined and they fought with everything they had.
After Magellan died, the other important sailors had a hard time keeping everything together. They started arguing with each other. It was difficult because they didn't agree on what to do next. Some wanted to do something and the other wanted to do something else. They couldn't agree and this made it hard to make any decisions. By May 1st, 1521, they decided they couldn't stay in the islands anymore. It was so difficult, they had lost their leader, and they were not as strong without him. They were also running low on supplies. They needed to leave to find more food, water for their journey. They had lost many men in battle and were worried about more attacks. They decided to leave the islands and continue their journey.
So they slid away from the island. They left behind the island they just started to explore. The sailor had hoped to find a new way to get a Spice Island, but they did succeed. They had found a new route to the Spice Island, which was their main goal. But even though they did reach their goal, her trip was still very important. Their visit started the long and complicated relationship between the island and the European countries. The people who lived in the island had dealt with the challenge that the sailor brought. It was a difficult time for many years. After Magellan's death, Spain didn't immediately try to take over the Philippines. His surviving crew had a hard time getting back to Spain, but stories of the island will convince Spain to try again. Years later, bigger and better preferred Spanish ships arrived. They weren't just explorers, they were soldiers, priests, and government. Officially, their goal was to conquer the island and convert the people to Christianity. They started to make small settlements, sometimes making friends with local leaders, sometimes fighting them. Slowly, Spain gained more power. They built forts, created trade routes, and controlled more and more land. The Catholic Church was very important, with missionaries teaching Christianity and building church and school. Becoming Christian often meant accepting Spanish rule. The period of Spanish colonial rule lasts forever, three centuries, from the early 16th century until the end of the Spanish-American War in 1898. But Filipino fought back against Spanish rule. There were many small and large rebellions. Spain used force to control the island, but Filipino kept resisting. The Spanish government in Manila ruled the island, but local leaders and traditional state mattered. Spanish control of the Philippines was a long and complicated story of both working together and fighting, deeply changing the island's history and culture. The approximately 333 years of Spanish colonial rule, the lasting impact on the Philippines.
The Philippine Revolution began in 1896 due to widespread dissatisfaction over 300 years of Spanish rule, characterized by unfair treatment, high taxes, and a lack of rights. Andres Bonifacio emerged as a key leader, founding the Katipunan, a secret society aimed at fighting for independence. The organization quickly gained members, fueled by anger over the arrest of activists like Jose Rizal. On August 23, 1896, the Katipunan officially declared a revolution. Bonifacio led the first major battle in Balintawak, demonstrating courage despite being poorly armed. However, internal conflicts arose, particularly with Emilio Aguinaldo, leading to Bonifacio's removal from leadership in 1897. Despite this, he continued to support the revolution.
The Declaration of Philippine Independence occurred on June 12, 1898, marking a significant moment in the fight against Spanish colonial rule. Emilio Aguinaldo, a key leader of the revolutionary movement, returned from exile in May and gathered support from fellow revolutionaries as the Spanish-American War created an opportunity for independence. On June 12, Aguinaldo and his supporters gathered in his home in Cavite, where he raised the Philippine flag and read the Declaration of Independence. This declaration expressed the Filipino people's right to be free and their desire to form their own nation. The crowd celebrated with cheers, parades, and music filled with hope for a new beginning. However, the celebration was mixed with concern as the arrival of American forces soon after the declaration led to new challenges for the Filipinos. Despite this, June 12 remains a significant date in Philippine history, symbolizing the courage and resilience of the Filipino people in their ongoing struggle for freedom and national identity.
Magellan's brief but impactful presence in the Philippines in 1521 serves as a crucial starting point in understanding the nation's rich and complex history. His arrival marked the beginning of a long and often tumultuous relationship with European powers, ultimately culminating in the Philippines' hard-won independence. Thank you.
Morning everyone, ano